I'm Bruce Lorenz, and this show is called Bruce on the Loose. I talk to people in the business community, also in Wadsworth schools and the city government. Lately, we had a show on not too long ago in regards to the house on the 45 units on Seville Road, Santee Landing. We also talked to Mike Kovac, longtime auditor in Medina County, over 30 years, and those can be seen on WCTV.com. There's a pull-down menu on the left, and pull down to Bruce on the Loose, and you can see those shows and several others. Phil Horrisberger is with us today, and I go back with Phil a little bit in summer school here in Wadsworth, and a wonderful teacher, social studies, Wadsworth High School. And Phil, thanks for taking out of your time out of your schedule to join us.
Thanks for the invitation.
What about your educational background, Phil? Where did you go to college and get your background?
Well, let's go back. I went to Walnut Creek School.
Wow.
It was 1 through 12, about 130 students, 1 through 12, most of them Amish, who went through the 8th grade and then stopped. So when we got to high school, there were like 8 kids in our class, and by the time we graduated, there was 6. So I was in the top 6 of my class.
That is remarkable, remarkable.
Yeah, so I graduated from Walnut Creek in 1957. 2 years later, they consolidated into Highland, Hiland. And but in '59, I started my college education at Bluffton, Ohio.
Home of the Beavers.
Home of the Beavers, absolutely. I graduated there in 1963. On July 1st of 1963, I had an interview with Mr. Burkholder, who was the superintendent of Wadsworth, and I signed the contract that morning, and I'm still here, 60-some years later.
Do you remember how much that contract was for? Was it 6 figures?
Absolutely. It was $4,350. And my first paycheck that I cleared from STRS was either $134 or $137. That was for 2 weeks' work. And more than once I wondered why I went to college, but it turned out really well.
Right, no question about
Yeah.
it. Along the way, now of course we have mentors for teachers that come out of college and universities. Did you have someone, maybe a teacher, that took you under your wing to help you? I imagine that would be to Wadsworth High School.
Right. When I came to Wadsworth was a 3-year high school, 10, 11, and 12 only, and the idea of a mentor for a new teacher was it was a new concept, and I didn't have a mentor, but I had someone that I went to when I had questions, other than an administrator. And that person was Jack Schaefer, who taught American government here at Wadsworth for years. So, yeah, thank goodness for Jack Schaefer.
Yeah, you think that you've covered everything in college, but there's so many things that happen, and each school district is unique and different. And how would you describe Wadsworth at that time? Really, kids that really wanted to learn.
Well, one of the first things I heard when I arrived in Wadsworth was that 65% of the kids go on for more education. And I thought, boy, that's impressive. I'm not sure that it remained that high, but certainly Wadsworth has a good school system. I was blessed to have been a part of the community of Wadsworth. Parents were very supportive of the schools for the 35 years that I taught here anyhow. So.
Do you think it's really important for teachers to become either coaches or advisors to various groups?
Well, I coached and I taught, but the time that I spent coaching was, I wish that I had probably spent more time in the teaching than in the coaching area, but I enjoyed coaching because I like kids, and I like teaching because I like kids. So, yeah, I think maybe I would do less coaching and concentrate more on teaching.
Maybe we could have people concentrate maybe on one thing throughout the year. That would be something that they could, if they are into tennis or track and field, they could do that. And as you say, especially the first few years when you're getting used to the system and really trying to motivate students, that would probably be a good idea.
Right. And the first couple years you're teaching, if you're not concentrating on your teaching, then I guess I'm wondering why you're in education.
Right. What about a situation where now we have only about half the teachers are coaches or advisors? A lot of the other people come in from the outside. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think people today have other interests. The monetary issue might be a factor, but yeah, I'm not sure that's a good thing. I think you need teachers or you need coaches that are involved in the system, the educational system, and I'll just leave it at that. I see coaches that are maybe trying to live their dreams through other kids, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just have an issue with that myself.
Sure. If you're in the system, you can really check with the other teachers if grades start to fall, if attitude needs to be a little adjusted along the way. That can really come back to the coach if they're in the building. You know, we talk about coaches in the system. You know, I could be a middle school teacher and go ahead and develop a high school sports team, and sometimes the communication lags a bit.
I agree with that. I think that the coach needs to be in the building where he's coaching. And yeah, if something happens first period in the morning and you're not in the building, you don't get there till the end of the day. All right, so 8 hours have gone by and whatever the issue was has probably not been resolved. And maybe you knew about it first period, but there wasn't anything you could do because you had other responsibilities.
Right.
So
you were a softball coach here in Wadsworth for numerous years, and you had a team that qualified for the state tournament. What did you feel about that year? How successful your team was?
It was a kind of a dream. Mm-hmm. We had in fast pitch, you need to have somebody can throw the ball hard. We had two pitchers, Hillary Johnson and Katie Wyant, who were very, very good. And we had 2 or 3 people. We had the twins, Tammy and Debbie Young, who could run the bases. And there was no coaching there. You just turned them loose, and they did whatever they could on the bases. It was fun. It was fun to watch as a coach. I just stood back.
Sound like a little bit like the Guardians. They go from first to third on a hit. They steal bases, and they have very good solid pitching.
Right.
And in softball, pitching is, would you maybe say 70% of the game? It's really, if you have a dominant couple pitchers, as you say, you can be in almost every game.
Right. Now they've moved the pitching mound back. It used to be, 40 feet? I think it's 45 feet now.
Yes, 42 to 45.
Yeah,
You're correct.
So,
yes.
So that's changed, but it's still a pitcher's game, and it was much more so probably in '98 when I was coaching. But it was just fun. You talk about taking the extra base. We won a district game because of that. Runner on first base, Tammy or Debbie Young. The other one was batting and bunted. And I said, if she lays the ball down, you're on third base.
Right.
So she bunted the ball, ended up on third base. They threw the ball over. It was an overthrow. Ball went out in the left field, and we scored the run. We won the game 1-0.
That's being aggressive, and the other
Yes.
team, if they didn't make the play, even if the throw was on line, she might have been in third. She could have scored in many ways from third base.
Yes, I was on third base coaching, and I could see the look in the third baseman's eye. She didn't want any part of that woman coming into third base.
Right.
The ball and her were there simultaneously, so she didn't stop the ball.
And I'm sure the parents were very excited. It sounded like you had
I was
a lot of very.
excited.
and did you have an assistant coach there to help you and give you some
I had
hints?
Dan Stout was an assistant coach, and Rick Miller was
Right.
an assistant coach that year. So and Mr. Chapman, who worked with the pitchers.
Okay.
So it was a good time.
Tell us about your. One of the reasons you're here is because you received an award from the Basketball Coaches Association for keeping the scorebook. And I think this is really important because when I first went to Black River, the athletic director asked if I would, from the middle school, do the varsity scorebook for the boys, and I did that for 3 years and learned a lot. How did you first get into that?
Well, it was back when Title IX, was it Title IX?
Yeah, right.
Was initiated, and I asked Rex McElveen, I said, hey, they've got a boys coach and our boys scorekeeper, and the girls don't, they're floundering looking for a parent to keep the book. And he said, you want to keep the book? And I said, yes. And so I started keeping the book. And we had a tournament. We had a Christmas tournament for the girls way before, well, this would have been in the mid-'70s. And then finally I started keeping the book full-time for the girls in '78. And then in '88 I started keeping the book for the boys. And the boys I gave up this past year, and the girls I continue to do. I'll keep on doing the girls, I think, until either I drop over or Andrew Booth resigns. So.
Yeah, Andrew Booth was very excited about, and I think he nominated you for the award, but you can't find people nowadays willing to do that so over 3 decades you did both the boys and girls?
Probably.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Tell me a couple stories that you've run into at, boy, you really have to focus on what you're doing, don't you?
And it's the boys especially, is very fast. And most of the years, the girls, if you put your head down to mark who scored a basket, there could be another basket scored before you look up. So it's thank goodness I have Kreider there to tell me who scored the basket. But it's all fun.
And of course, you probably really enjoyed, as you did your softball coaching, as the girls advanced into tournament play. I think you saw quite a few tournament games, didn't you? Down into Canton area and maybe at Norwalk and Columbus, I think, too.
Absolutely. 97, 98, and 99. We played Worcester in the regional finals, and we beat them.
And they had a phenomenal team.
They did. They were very, very good. But we were good as well. And then, so I got to keep the book for the 97 state championship, and then again in 2016 we won it again.
Right.
So
a
lot of experience.
Let me understand, as you go into the district, regional, and state at those tournaments, are you considered, if like Wadsworth was the home team, were you considered the official book, or do they have someone there from the state that keeps their own?
From the district on, the state has somebody. Okay. They have an official book, and I'm just there
making sure
that they're right. So there's usually 3 people.
Okay.
Us and whoever we're playing and the official score.
Social studies is sometimes a subject that students don't get really excited about. You and I both have that in common, that we're both social studies teachers, and I can't think of another subject that prepares students to be good citizens than social studies. Would you agree?
I agree. The goal should be to produce good citizens, and that's always what I think I was concerned about. Not did you get an A or a B or a C or a D in history, but are you or were you a good citizen? That's the bottom line.
When we talk about social studies, we're just not talking about American history. We're talking about European history. We're talking about American government. We're talking about economics, geography. I mean, it really spans so many different subjects, and sometimes those subjects have not been offered as readily as they could be. I mean,
right.
It's really comprehensive, and colleges used to give a comprehensive social studies degree, and so that means you could teach all those subjects.
That's what I had from.
Oh, you had comprehensive.
Yeah,
okay, so you had
yep.
geography.
Geography,
is it
sociology, general business.
Right. Oh, okay. Wow.
And, yeah.
I would think it's even more important today to know geography, because it seems like the world has shrunk. And what happens in France? They're trying to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64, and Macron is really being criticized for that. He initiated that legislation on his own,
right.
without even a vote. So what happens there? Maybe he was looking at the United States, looking at 65, although
they moved that up.
They've moved that up in our country. So the world is really shrinking. Would you agree with that?
Sure. We shouldn't be necessarily concerned about just what's going on in the U.S., because what goes on, for example, in the Ukraine or in Russia, in China, it affects us economically, probably militarily, socially. Yeah, we can send someone to the moon, but we still can't get our neighbor to live beside someone without being resentful or because they happen to be different. It's just maddening to me.
It seems to be changing a little bit, though. It seems like young people, maybe the environmental issues have really solidified them, and they seem to be a little more active than they were. When I taught government, it was like pulling teeth to get them to register, and then they would go off to college, and that caused a problem. But it was sometimes difficult to get 18 and 24-year-olds to participate. Why? Do you have other reasons why that would be the case?
Apathy.
Apathy?
I think. I mean, maybe we haven't emphasized it enough. There's talk about making voting day a holiday. Would that be the answer? People would just take off. Yeah, this is the day I don't have to work, and I can go on a vacation or whatever for a day, fishing or whatever. So I don't know what the answer is, but people need to wake up to what's going on and be aware, because what we have is not guaranteed. That's at least not from my perspective.
You did several years of summer school. In fact, that's where I think we first met, and I did some government and you did American history. Why was that kind of a little more laid back, and the kids could pick up a credit and take some other things along the way? Did you enjoy teaching summer school?
I did. I enjoyed summer school. There were kids who would take it if they were really good students. I'm thinking, why are you taking this now? But
right.
But by the same token, there were other courses that they wanted to take, and so this made it possible. They could take history. Mostly social studies is all they offered in summer school.
And phys ed and a couple other things.
Right.
But yeah, very, very few offerings.
Right. I don't know that they offered any math or chemistry or anything like that. Just social studies.
We had Mike Schmelzer on the show earlier, and he said when he started chemistry, AP chemistry, he had to do it before school because the kids already had so many other classes set in their schedule, and so he had to do it a 0 period. So I think summer school helped maybe some of those kids that they could take Mike's class. And I think the high school, looking at from the middle school perspective, there were a lot of solid teachers at the high school. I mean, we talked about Joe Gaines before the show. We talked about Mike Schmelzer Sr. And just so many wonderful teachers. Were you at the time? Did you recognize those people as really top notch?
I think I did. I mean, they put in the time, and I would hear comments from students when they'd come into my class, and I absorbed all that. And so I made up my mind.
Go ahead.
Sometimes teachers would, or kids would come in and they'd be talking about what they did in so-and-so's class. And I thought to myself, I want to be leading the parade when it's time to go. I don't want to be at the end of the parade. So.
What about we talked briefly about how important social studies is, but realistically, I mean, the people that are impacted. A lot of our government people in law, people in economics and banking, they really have a solid social studies background. I think it gives you the big picture, the wide picture of our society, doesn't it?
It does, but there are people, and we have the bank in Silicon Valley went under. Why? Because there was people don't want regulation, but if you need regulation to control the people who need to be controlled. And the banking system is a great example from my perspective of where if there's not some kind of regulation there, and I mean a lot of regulation, I guess we needed, because the bankers, I read that this director of the bank in Silicon Valley, I forget how many thousand shares he sold 2 days before the bank collapsed, and so it's not fair. I'm just rambling now. So,
what about railroads? Do you think they need a little regulation too?
A little bit. Ask the people in East Palestine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and again, the laws that were in place were relaxed. I think it was they were relaxed because it made it possible for the companies to make more money, and I guess it's going to cost them some money.
We talked about why teachers should maybe consider being coaches and advisors, but on the other end, what does it do for a student? What about Katie Wyatt and the young sisters? How do you think they look back on that 1998 softball season, and what do you think they think about that?
Well, the three that you mentioned they've been inducted into the Wadsworth High School Hall of Fame, and if they don't look back on that career in softball or any other sport that they were involved in with pride, then they're missing out, I think. I look back on that season with pride for what they did. Not that we did anything as coaches, but kids were good.
Northeast Ohio has a good reputation for softball. I know that Akron Ellet and certainly some teams that Wadsworth played and really had a statewide reputation of being very solid. Stark County has a real good reputation of softball, and that kind of makes you feel good that it's not like you're a Mickey Mouse organization. You're playing against some really good teams.
Ellet has a very good program, and the coach over there is just a really, really good person. And Talmadge was, always tough. So,
What about parents? What can we tell about young parents today? Should they try to go ahead and get their kids in as many activities, maybe ballet or theater or maybe soccer? Is that the key to their getting their ego and finding out who they are?
Well, kids need, first of all, we need to allow kids to be kids rather than throwing them into dance at the age of 3. Anyhow. But you want your kids to be involved, because if they don't get involved in structured activities, they'll find something to do. And that might not always be pleasing to the parents. So,
no question about it. It really keeps them busy, and again, they're around good adults and other.
Right.
They make friends with those people. We mentioned earlier briefly about the Wadsworth community. How supportive was the community in your teaching and coaching career here?
From a standpoint of coaching, I just didn't have many complaints. Once in a while there'd be a complaint, but tried to work that out. Teaching, once in a while, again, there'd be a complaint, and but nothing serious. The most serious thing I ever had, as far as threatening my job, was having facial hair.
Okay. Yeah, like the New York Yankees couldn't do that. Right. Yeah, that's true.
So this was back in '69 or '7. Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah, very much so. Well, Phil, thank you very much. I learned a lot about your career and what you meant to Wadsworth. Thank you for all that you've done for our youth and individuals here in town. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations on your award for being the scorekeeper for both the girls mostly and the boys as well for many years.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for viewing Bruce on the Loose, and we're going to talk to those fine wrestlers coming up around the corner, and Coach Wenger and their successful season in the state wrestling tournament. And you can see that on watchwctv.com. Thanks for viewing.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.